So good morning, everybody. Welcome to Adoption UK's webinar with the fabulous Helen Oakwater. Helen is an adopter, author, coach, trainer extraordinaire. And Helen's going to take you on a very quick whistle-top tour through this webinar. We will do questions at the end, so if anyone's got any questions throughout, you just drop them into the chat, and then at the end of it I shall ask all those questions in one go. So thank you so much, Helen, and I can't wait to hear from you.
Thank you, and it is a delight to be here. And for those of you, I haven't done my usual loads of slides and a very formal way of presenting this. There was so much that I could potentially cover. I decided to do it, yes, I have slides coming, and to storytell. And future-proofing came into my concepts probably over a decade ago. And when Facebook reared, and I started thinking, this is going to make a big difference to adoption. And I wrote an article, a couple of articles, I was doing articles for the Adoption UK magazine about what I said, you know, the impact of Facebook could be on adoption. And people went, no, you just got to teach the kids how to do their, sort their settings out, which completely misses the point. Because the thing that the ability to connect through Facebook from adopted children and birth families it's about what's going on inside the child. Facebook is merely the mechanism that kids and birth families can use to connect to children that have been removed from them. So I tend not to look at the superficial level, it's what is going on underneath, inside the child, that is making these things happen. And after I'd written those articles, which incidentally got more complaints to Adoption UK letters than anything else ever did, then I started getting the phone calls and I started getting people saying, oh my God, this has happened. You know, my son, I've just discovered my son got on a train and went 250 miles to meet up with a member of his birth family who's a paedophile. Oh, okay. And then he went a second time and he took a knife. And over the last 10 years, the children, the adopted children who have reconnected with birth family, sometimes through their initiation, sometimes through birth family contacting them. And the outcomes have been often quite ugly. And one of the things that I believe future-proofing is important for is to make sure that that doesn't happen further down the line, and that we deal with things right here, right now, so that it doesn't happen in the future. That does not mean we push the birth family away. It's actually, in a way, the opposite. We have to recognize that our children have at least two families. They have the birth family, and they have the adoptive family, and potentially a number of foster families in between. And our children will have birth family inside them in a variety of ways, and this must be honoured. And in a way, it's that lack of honouring that has contributed to the absolute explosive chaos that has happened. Now, I've been in the adoption world for over 25 years. My 3 kids were placed in the early 1990s. And I am seeing families who have been blown apart. I know families where there is now no connection between the adoptive parents and the children. I know families where there is a connection between two. I know children who've reconnected with birth family and have been introduced to heroin and have been introduced to a whole heap of things that we wouldn't necessarily choose for our children. I also know many children who've been reconnected with birth family who then said, we didn't do anything. We always loved you. We always wanted you. You were taken away from us and that was wrong. They've reconnected with siblings And those siblings may have been their protectors when they were in the birth family home. A few years down the line, they reconnect, and the oldest sibling, who ended up staying with the birth family and experienced the chaos, the maltreatment, whatever the reasons were that the younger children were removed. So their view on the world and their life experience could be pretty tough. And I know children who've reconnected in that light, where they've been adopted and maybe a couple of others have been fostered and a couple of others stayed with the birth family, and there's a bit of a competition as to who had it worse, with the children who stayed with birth family going, well, you had it really easy, didn't you? Having no awareness that actually the boy who'd been removed was in fact quite suicidal. Other children who self-harm, and the competition between siblings, or the contact from the wife of a sibling, of a birth sibling, who is really angry that the adopted child had such an easy time. You have no idea what my husband had to put up with because you got taken away. And there's all this anger and aggression that is floating around. Now that, in my view, will happen if we do not really look carefully at what the underlying reasons are for that happening. So that's kind of the basis of where I'm coming from today. I'm going to whip through lots of slides and take questions at the end. So I will now share my screen, hopefully. Yay. Okay. Future-proofing your adoptive family. Just so you know, I was an Adoption UK trustee for 6 years. I ran a local group for over a decade. I was on a local authority panel, and I didn't put it on there, but I was a member of the government task force. I've written a couple of books, Want to Adopt and Bubble Wrap Children. Bubble Wrap Children came out in 2012 and addressed the whole issue of what is happening around connection via Facebook. And it's about trauma. It's the birth family perspective and the child's perspective rather than the adopters. The adopter's perspective is much more in Want to Adopt, about preparing yourself. About preparing yourself for, right, okay, I seem to have lost the ability to share. Right. Okay. This is the opening cartoon in Want to Adopt. And it's about the difference between Sandy, who's a securely attached, normally developing youngster, and Tim, who is a traumatized infant, maltreated. So with Tim, you can see he's lying there neglected in the cot. He cries louder, and then he stops. And what's that sense of self for him deep down in his core? So Facebook changed everything, but only superficially. We can use the face contact through Facebook as a high level, but actually underneath, there's been a need and a desire from both sides. Now this represents, the blues represent birth family, the orange adoptive parents, and in between is Tim, this child who's been potentially maltreated quite severely. And we're just going to explore a few concepts to take us through. Tim's experience. We imagine Tim lying in a cot. He can see nothing because it's dark. He can smell urine, excrement. He can touch the nappy rash that runs from his waist to his ankle. He can see the shouting and the slamming doors. That's the sort of experience that a child has lying in a cot. That goes into what I call shrapnel. So that would be a single experience that goes into metaphorical shrapnel. Different types of maltreatment, different types of shrapnel. I represent this with colours. It is a metaphor. Doesn't mean it's exactly true, but it's a model for thinking. And actually, the reason I use the bubble wrap metaphor is that metaphorically, children wrap themselves in bubble wrap when they are being maltreated. And that then distorts our view of them and their perception of the world. They put the bubble wrap on as a protective mechanism, which is great at the time. However, it is not useful further down the line. It also accounts for why you see children who are good as gold, as described recently. That is not possible and it only makes sense if you understand the metaphor of the bubble wrap, because the behaving as good as gold and being compliant keeps the child safe in the environment they were in where they were being hurt. And they will keep that bubble wrap on even when they're picked up and put into a nice new foster home and then picked up into a nice new adoptive home. If you've had all this shrapnel, if the child, Tim, has had all this metaphorical shrapnel, the physical abuse, the sexual abuse, whatever levels of maltreatment and neglect, just think about what behaviours might be formed inside them. And then what behaviour might you see? And the compliance is a way of protecting, as is being overtly aggressive, as is running away. What beliefs might that child form? Maybe that they're bad, they're not important, the world's a dangerous place. This is one of the references that I'm giving you, and this is a 13-minute video filmed when I was in Sydney, and this goes into a deeper dive into Tim. What's going to happen with no therapy? The shrapnel is still inside Tim. He still thinks he's a bad boy. And anything that you or anybody else says to him is not actually going to get through that bubble wrap. And I want now to just think of a couple of examples as to what reframing might be required. So let's say we have the story of Tim and the house was a bit messy. Now, that's my old house. Yeah, it's a bit messy. You know, towels are on the floor, laundry basket, you can see. And I bet for some of you, your house sometimes looks like that. And some of you are going, God, yeah, but worse than that. And so the house is described a bit messy. Actually, this is also a house that is a bit messy. Now, the linguistics are the same. The house was a bit messy. So that's confusing for Tim, because what Tim might see if he'd lived with me, my slightly untidy bedroom that's messy, is not the same as somewhere that's full of rubbish, flies, has rotting food and a blocked toilet. It doesn't match the language. So what children need is to know that they slept on a mattress soaked with urine, covered in filthy bedding, wading through mouldy, ankle-deep trash to get to the front door to go off to school. And this photograph is from a newspaper. This is real. This was a situation where, from memory, it was 5 or 6 children were living there. This would have been described as a bit messy. Now, think about Tim, who maybe lay in the cot and had these experiences and what they were smelling. The house was a bit messy. There's difference between clean and untidy compared to disgusting squalor. And think what that smells like. And think of the experience that Tim has of being hungry, of having cold feet, of being scared. Without any interventions and therapy, that shrapnel is still going to be inside Tim. And he's going to have a confusion between the untidy and the chaotic squalor. So he needs some understanding around that. He will have formed some beliefs during that time, and beliefs drive behaviour. So this is another reference for you. This is one of my NLP trainers, Robert Dilts, who created on the back of some work of Gregory Bateson, logical levels. This particular model hit me like a train the first time that I heard it, which was my first day on my NLP training back in 2002. And it was because beliefs drive behaviour, and it made sense of my children's behaviour, and it made sense of why, with attachment, even though we'd had 2 years of attachment therapy, we had not changed some of the beliefs, particularly for one of the children. And if you don't change people's beliefs, then the behaviour is not going to change. And often the interventions that are used in parenting and then mapped across by people who don't really understand to parenting traumatized children change some of their behaviour and it'll all be okay. No, we have to get right to the core around beliefs changing behaviours. This is Robert explaining, I interviewed him at an NLP conference, explaining logical levels. You've got the link there. We'll make sure you get all the links in the emails. And then there is a second video. Watch the first one first so you get the logical levels. And then he explains what trauma does to logical levels. And the book there, Coach to Awakener, it is a coaching book, so I'm not necessarily recommending it for you as adopters, although frankly it's a good book, so I'm not going to say don't. It is one of my favourites. And those are on the my YouTube channel. The other metaphor I want to share with you is the jigsaw of truth. And I think that what we have to do is map out over time what a child's story is. So let's say at the age of 6, we give them, if we gave them a jigsaw, it would be something like a 25-piece jigsaw, and it's the sea, it's got flag and clouds, and it looks like that. And it was truth-telling. So we might say, in this context, that some of the people that were around you in the birth family, they were very naughty. And we can leave it at that. Then as they get older, at the age of 9, you might give them a 100-piece jigsaw. And that people were naughty was actually some of the adults there hurt children. Then by the age of 13, you might say, well, yeah, some of the people were naughty. And actually, yeah, I know you remember Uncle Fred. Uncle Fred is a paedophile. And then by the time you get to 18 and 21, you've got all of the pieces of the jigsaw known and shared with the child, in inverted commas, so that they've got the whole detailed story, and they know that Uncle Fred was a paedophile, that there are videos of their brothers being abused that are on the internet. We don't think there's any of you on the internet being abused. We can't be certain, but we're not aware of any. That way, you are future-proofing a child when, let's say, Uncle Fred gets back in contact. What will the child's response be to Uncle Fred if he doesn't know he's a paedophile and hurts children, or if he does? Now, the reality is that there are going to be gaps. There are going to be gaps in the story because nobody knows exactly what happened to that child at 3 o'clock in the morning. when mum and dad were stoned. Some of those things are never going to be able to be confirmed, and we all have to live with unknowns in our history. Even those of us that had no traumatic history at all, those of us that had traumatic history will have even more confusion because of that. So we have to recognize that's what happens. That's why I say it has to be truth-telling in an age-appropriate way. So with a child that's been neglected, if they understand that and they understand the squalor and the smell, and Tim understands the pain in his stomach that's actually from hunger, that he understands that when he gets really scared, he feels he gets scared when he's hungry. And it's why he likes the smell of farts, because there is something familiar about them that takes him back to very early infancy, very early childhood, and the sensory triggers that are there from the smells, the touches, the feel, the rough feel of the nappy rash, the smell of the sour milk. If he has some understanding and has a reframing on that, he can view himself and his experiences differently. So he reframes that episode and says, well, let's say the episode when he is removed, when the police have been called by the neighbours because of the screaming, and with good therapeutic interventions that are sensory aware and very trauma informed, this Tim can understand it wasn't his fault, that stepdad was drunk and wrong, and that actually that rescue that at the time felt very traumatic was in fact because of how important he was. And actually he is a good boy, and he was a good boy, and stepdad was, whatever stepdad was saying was wrong. That level of reframe is so useful. So he can start understanding the neglect, and he can see that if he washes himself, keeps himself clean, alcohol can be dangerous, and he needs to eat regularly. That's what really good reframing can do. So it avoids the false narrative. We have to ensure that there is a sensory understanding, which is why things like photographs are so useful. What gets written in files may not be the full story, and if particularly birth family have had to see the files, there will be things that are not put in there. And there's also the stuff that happens that nobody knows about. A coherent narrative allows the child to trust their body sensations. And if you don't feel safe in your body, in my view, if you don't feel safe in your body, you won't feel safe anywhere. And we know from Bessel van der Kolk, the body keeps the score. So this shrapnel is going to be inside the child. Yes, there's ways of melting it, and that's a whole other webinar, training course, whatever. Understanding is the first key thing, understanding the why. So when Facebook comes along and there is a message from birth mum, from a friend, Tim has some way of having some understanding. And what we're seeing at the moment is certainly adopted parents sometimes losing that connection. And we are seeing kids being reconnected with their birth family in a completely chaotic way. And it's not just birth mum, birth dad. There's a whole load of other members of the family. All of them have shifted. All of them have moved on. Maybe birth mum is no longer a drinker. Maybe she's no longer a drug addict. Maybe she is. Maybe she's got mental health issues. Maybe they've got worse or better since the child has been removed. So we have to understand that for all members of the birth family, things have changed. And we also have to remember that members of the birth family may not remember the neglect because they were out on a bender and forgot that they'd left him in a cot. And then when they meet up when they're older, would say, no, I would never have done that to you. And yet that's what's happened. One of the things that's really useful for all of us, and I'm going to touch on this very briefly, the window of tolerance, the level of arousal that we have. If you are able to manage your self-regulation, it is going to make a massive difference to how you parent. If children can open that window of tolerance, which starts as a baby very small, that will make a huge difference. This is an extract from Want to Adopt with color coded, where it's looking at a rough guide to the autonomic nervous system and the polyvagal theory. I'm not expanding on that now. It's just, it is a resource for you. This is too short to point you everywhere. I've got some online training and all sorts of resources on my Fab Parents website, which I've been having all sorts of problems with. So there's no live blog or any of that stuff, but there is a lot of material there. And the last comment there, the leading learner. I started exploring because I wanted to understand my children better. And that's why I ended up literally traveling the globe to learn from the best in a way of understanding trauma and what our kids need. So I'm going to, if I can, stop sharing. Am I sharing? What's happening?
You stopped sharing.
Good. So you're back. Have you got me as well, or?
Yeah, I'm back.
And have you got me too?
Yes, I can see you.
Right. So is this, can everybody see us side by side? Could you just put in the chat box if you can see us side by side? Molly says no. Okay, let me see. Oh God. No.
Yeah. I think most people can now. Yes.
Yes.
Great.
Cool.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. My visual aids. Metaphorical shrapnel, which can come. So this is a piece of neglect shrapnel. It might also be that shape. It could be this shape. Please note the colour. Obviously, I go around picking these things up. And then what we need is a head torch that will pick up the appropriate things when we are investigating and doing deep dives into helping our kids, working with really well-informed, trauma-informed therapists who also understand the somatic of all of this.
Wow, thank you. Thank you very much. That was a whistle-stop tour. So I've got a couple of questions that already come in. One of them is that, do you think bubble wrap children is still relevant in terms of social media 8 years on?
Yes. Absolutely. Yes, it is absolutely relevant because it is about trauma. It's not about Facebook. It is. I mean, I'm actually potentially, yeah. So things like this is from Bubble Wrap Children, a perspective. So this is a child being removed, multiple perspectives. The perspective of the child in the cot, this perspective of, I think that's his birth parents, does it? Oh God, I can't read that. It may be parent perspective, the perspective of the police officer who comes and takes that child. So yes, it is completely relevant now because it's the why. I couldn't have expressed it when I wrote it, but the why is really important. And I have learned a huge amount on that from Start With Why. This is nothing to do with adoption, it's kind of a businessy book. But if you start with why, the what and the how follow. And often what we see is people saying what you should do and how you should do it, but not why. And if you don't understand the why, you don't look at the underlying root cause of what it is. And if you find the right cause, then you can put the right therapeutic intervention in. So if you start understanding that a child who is running around being is completely driven by fear, then you start understanding why the self-regulation, teaching how to breathe, and that sounds a bit simplistic, but just do it now, everybody, for a minute. Put your feet on the floor, ground your feet, allow tree roots to grow through, one hand on your chest, one hand on your stomach, and just high chest breathe. And if you keep doing this, you can actually kind of give yourself anxiety and start feeling panicky. Allow your attention to drop down into the stomach and start breathing in the stomach. And this is physiological. This is not some weird hippie shit. This is physiological. And what you are doing by engaging stomach breathing and calm breathing is you are starting to widen your window of tolerance and calming. Now, if you do that for you, you can also do it with the kids. So you can play or lie down on the floor, put a bunny, a teddy on your tummy, and get the bunny to move up and down. And you do it with them. So you are modeling this behavior. It will help you calm. So that's not in there, actually. The things like breathing and the autonomic nervous system actually is in Want to Adopt. And if I can just plug it for a minute, although it says it's for perspectives, it is not. It was written to help parents. So even if you're 5 or 10 years in, I mean, I've certainly, had it proofread by people who 20 plus years experience who went, oh, bloody hell, I wish I'd known that at any stage on the journey. So there is a whole lot of material in there. And bearing in mind that I'm a coach and I have a lot of knowledge from that area, that's what I pull into what I do.
Helen, you will love this, that on Doses course last week, they referenced your book.
Good.
About children.
Good.
And Lisa said 15 years in and she absolutely loved it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, I've certainly, thank you.
I've got a question here. How does this affect a child who has never lived with birth parents but had daily contact for 8 months at a contact centre? Okay.
The child will have had 9 months inside mum. The child will have heard mum, will have experienced the hormones, will have recognised the voice. So there's that side of it. 8 months of daily contact with a birth parent who was, by the sound of it, able possibly to meet the child's needs for a very small period of time during the day. Let's say the contact was 2 to 4. The other 22 hours, who knows what birth mum was doing. So in those hours, it might have been okay. It survived for 8 months. So what does that mean? And what were the interactions like between the birth mum and the child? Was it loving eyes? Was it, oh, oh, sweetheart, yes, oh, you are just gorgeous, would you? Was it that kind of contact? Or was it, come on, you're here with me, look, I know, I'm doing the right plane, no, do that, come on, let's just, right, do you want your teddy, do you want your dolly, okay, what are we going to do? Or it was, yeah, okay, yeah, all right, hello, babe, yeah, I'm with the baby, yeah, I'm with the baby, yeah, I'm with the baby, yeah, all right, now let's take a picture together, shall we? Oh, yeah, click. All right, and then actually, yeah, I know the baby's here, but I've just got to take this. What was that experience like for the child? What did it set up inside the child? And if you, I can't give you a reference off the top of my head, but if you look at some of these studies into baby interaction, so interacting with the baby and then frozen face. Baby starts getting slightly distressed. Eyes the parent. Under instructions from the researchers, look away and don't engage with the baby. Baby starts crying, bit, waving, trying to get my attention. I do nothing. You can see when you look at this with the work, the researchers, particularly when it's in slow motion, you can see the level of distress on the face. I have witnessed a child who was left with a deeply inadequate parent, and I witnessed this over a period of time. I had no permission to be involved. It was not, you know, there was nothing I could do other than observe. And I watched the child rejected any eye contact from when birth mum was looking at the child avoided eye contact. Now, nobody else spotted that, but I knew what I was looking for or looking at, and it was deeply distressing. So yes, in short answer, what will have that done to the child? I don't know. And I would probably start thinking really hard about self-regulation, because that child may have been full of fear and distress and masked it. Because if I cover it in bubble wrap, excuse me, if I cover it in bubble wrap, then who's going to know? Who's going to see? What will the distortion of the bubble wrap do?
Thank you, Helen. That's really useful, and I think a really good example of how contact can still have the same effect. Okay, got another question for you here. My 10-year-old daughter has a very distinctive surname. We have not shared this with her, but she has on occasion asked what she used to be called. Her birth family would be very easy to find on social media. How should they approach it?
Tricky. Let's be honest, there are quite a lot of us, and I put my hand up here, who stalk birth family on the internet. And why do we do that? Partly out of curiosity, partly because we want to protect our kids and we want to know what's happening. So we stalk. If you're going to stalk, make sure you do it very carefully. And you know, I am not a technology expert. You know, I think it's probably possible, well, probably possible. I think setting up a fake account, you know, you've only got to read the press to know that can happen. So you might want to go and have a look. As far as the unique name is concerned, I can't give a yes, no, tell her, don't tell her. What I would say is potentially you can explore these things together. Now, 10, maybe a bit young. In theory, they can't go on Facebook till they're 13. Yeah, right. You know, you just change your name. The other thing that I suppose this brings up is, what level of contact should you have while the child is younger? And is it useful to have contact? Now, the first thing is, the first point is safety. Are you at risk from the birth family? I mean, there might have been 10 years ago, but maybe not now. Some families, for example, traveller families, you know, make no bones about it, they will get their child back, whatever. So not sharing surnames and keeping that confidential is important. You know, we know there are adopters who've got panic buttons and have the police around on a regular basis, have had to change cars because their number, you know, the car was seen with them and the child. So there are some big security things. Having said that, many birth families, in my experience, they are not, they are quite often, I'm going to say the word pathetic because that's the first one that comes up. Actually, they are inadequate people who have had a tough start in life themselves. They may have been through the care system themselves. They may not have had good parenting. They use drugs and alcohol to cover their pain because they've never had the chance to explore it. And there is something about ownership. If you've given birth to a child or you've created a child through sex, is there some kind of ownership? Now, we could have a big philosophical discussion about whether we own our children. Some people view their children as their possessions and own them, whereas there may be a different way of looking at it. I certainly take the view that adoptive families share their children with the birth family. Now, they may not be physically in their lives. There may be some physical contact. There may be some letterbox contact. And for those of you who complain about letterbox contact not coming from the birth family, and so you stop that. Birth family deserve to have a letter to know that their child is alive. Birth families will watch television and hear about a death of a 10-year-old girl on a beach, and they don't know whether it was their daughter or not. So you have to really step into the shoes of the birth family. And that's what Bubble Wrap Children does, because I think you have to have compassion and empathy and understanding for them. And if you have some level of direct contact, then children could see what their birth families are like. They meet somebody who's got the same hands as them, the same nose. There are siblings who may be placed with other adoptive families. That level of contact between siblings, yes, it's worth it. Again, think about the why, what's going on underneath, to start thinking that through. There is no simple answer, but I tend to think of it as a structural and start asking some deep questions. I veered, I'm not sure if I fully answered that.
I think it's a very difficult subject to have, isn't it? Whether you actually give your child all the details, if it is like a unique name. But as you say, it's about unpicking and the wider picture and doing lots of work with them before that point. Yes. Over internet safety, about searching, about how, if you want to find out more information, we do this together. We do it through support, we do it, everything's done as a family.
Absolutely. And when they become teenagers, they're going to do that. You know, it's part of the job description of being a teenager. You do that. And Holly Van Golden said, any child who's been, any adopted child knows three things, even if they're left on the street in Guatemala. My parents were fertile, my parents had sex, and my parents were irresponsible. And by contrast, my adoptive parents are terribly responsible. You know, they're very responsible. They never have sex. And they're infertile. So with adopted children, they have pull in two different directions. During adolescence, part of the role of adolescence, you rebel against your parents. If they are your adopted parents who are the infertile, never having sex variety, they're going to be pulled off in the opposite direction. And they, unlike most teenagers who could go off in a random direction, our kids have the ability to go, ooh, I can head off in that direction. I can go there. And they reconnect with birth family who say, absolutely, no, you don't need exams. No, it's fine. Have a puff on this. Or similar, which is a big contrast to the adopters. So if you think about contact and children learning about their past, and it is important that they do. If you think of it like a flight of stairs, and if you go down a flight of stairs, it is best to do it one step at a time, holding onto a banister so that it's safe, rather than jumping from the top and landing on the ground in a big heap with a broken leg. So another metaphor.
Thank you. We for those of you that weren't able to join us last week, we had a great webinar from Ruth, who's an adoptive mum, who is nearly at the stage of co-parenting with her two girls' first mum. And we're hoping to get them back on to do another webinar. So that was about contact and about relationships with birth family, first family, and how that can go together. So thanks.
Sorry, can I just add to that? And if that's possible, that's great. I can give you multiple stories where that could not have happened, hasn't happened, where children have been introduced to drugs, where they have been used, birth family have taken money from them. It has been an absolute nightmare. And stepping back to the research for a minute, I'm quite critical of research around adoption, reunion and contact. Less the reunion, but the contact. Because many birth parents will not participate in the research. So the research is done, and there's a cohort of birth parents who are cooperative, who are that size, and they're included in the research. And people you know, professionals in particular draw conclusions from that. Whereas the cohort of birth parents is actually out here. And this whole massive other group would not have collaborated, cooperated with researchers. And you've got to remember that for those people who have had their children removed by the court against their will, by bastard social services, bastard, you know, having this, they took those children away. The birth family are angry and they have this sense of possession. Now, I can think of a birth mother I know who's kept 2 of her children and the other has been removed and is adopted. On social media, she has photographs of all 3. And the idea that the adopters have, you know, that might not be okay for the doctors would not cross her mind. And ironically, she is an adopted person herself. So it is a complex web. You have to, there's anyone who tells you it's simple and there's an easy answer, go and talk to somebody else. You've got to understand the why.
Absolutely. Thank you, Helen. The slides that Helen's shown today are going to be emailed out to you afterwards. So Helen will send those to us and we'll get those out, because someone's asked about the shrapnel slide, but that'll be emailed so you have that.
I mean, honestly, it is, the slides I've used is a bit of a mishmash. It's why I've given you some of those YouTube references. The Sydney, the Me on the Platform in Sydney, that was kind of, that's Tim being created. And there are other things, there are lots of other videos on the YouTube that kind of connects with those. And there's all sorts of articles and others as well. So to give you that deep dive, there's not much you can do in this length of time.
Helen we could fill a whole week, couldn't we? And
well, happy to come back anytime.
Absolutely. I've got another question here. How do we learn from adult adoptees, it varies by country, adoption, time of adoption, without them feeling and directing their anger at us as adoptive parents?
Oh, well, I recognise that one. I mean, I have to say, I've been trolled and it's horrible. I mean, it's really, really upsetting. You know, and I live alone. So when some of that stuff comes in, it's like, oh, where do I take it? So filter would be the first thing. And also adoptees, and it's particularly, I think, true for American adoptees who've been taken from a foreign country and picked up and put in a new country, and it's like, well, forget your past. And not honouring that, they come from a different perspective because part of them is missing. And I think that's probably true for all adoptees. Part of them is missing. Adoption is based on loss. You know, it's based on loss. Loss has grief. For those of you, again, it's in Bubble Wrap Children, the grief cycle. Kubler-Ross's grief cycle is in Bubble Wrap Children. It's another one in Want to Adopt. They're at different stages of the grief cycle. So if there is an angry adoptee, they are at the angry adoptions grief stage. Others might just be incredibly sad and they take it inside and they may become depressed, they may become self-harmers, they may, all sorts of things. Yes, listen to adult adoptees with caution and with compassion. And, you know, my response, I don't think I've breached this, but I respond with kindness or ignore. That's my strategy. Except with one particular troller who started having a go at my kids. And I went, you start having a go at my kids and you will see me as a lioness like you have never seen me before. Because I will not, you can insult me, don't start on my kids. So that's the only time. Smile, nod, recognise that people tweet when they're drunk, when they're tired, when they're fed up. And people say stuff from a basis of no knowledge. I once had a teacher who said to me, I understand all about adopted children. I have children in my class whose parents are divorced. And I had the gaping mouth moment and just thought, and you know, that teacher, I took one of mine out for a term because it just became impossible.
But I think going back to your question that was asked as well, we had Julian did our very first webinar for us, and Julian's an adopted young adult. So he kicked off the whole webinar series, and I would love to get more adoptees on talking about their experience of that, Steph, and both family as well. Wanting to make sure that we're opening it up. It's just trying to get those people to come forward. So I am working on it, and I think that this is a great format if we can have people on.
Absolutely, and it takes huge courage. You know, I present, I stand on platforms and train people, and you know, have been doing it now for years. To actually stand and talk about your personal experience, which then some people will take and kind of give you a bit of a kicking, and to say, here is, let me share some of my vulnerability. There are people who go, oh look, vulnerable, just give it a bit of a kick. And there are people who do that. One of the other issues with this is adoption covers children, you know, from 60 years ago relinquished because there was no abortion and you weren't allowed to have sex. So those children there's that whole story in adoption. And then all the television reunion. People don't understand that for us in the UK, adoption is based on children who have 95+% children who have been removed by the courts. They come with trauma, they come with pain, they come with hurt, they come having been exposed in the womb to maybe alcohol or drugs. And you know, we know the damage that alcohol, prenatal alcohol does. It is complex, and the world out there just goes, oh, adoption reunion, what happened to your real mummy? And so we have to be careful with that. And for adult adoptees to share, particularly if they had a tough start in life, I think takes huge courage. And I think we have to, you know, surround them with compassion and honour their position and honour it because that's their experience. I delivered a conference speech in Finland a couple of years ago, and it was a big, I mean, it was a national conference, a huge thing. And one of the things that they have there are experts through experience. And I talked to these kids who had been fostered, adopted, a variety of things. They were being paid to be there. They are being paid to sit on national bodies and input. And they were, oh, it was fabulous. It was just glorious to hear that, and that respect and honour. Expert through experience.
Yeah, really love that. And that actually, for a lot of adoptive parents, and that leads me on to my next question, is we kind of need a badge sometimes when you're going into situations. I haven't written this question, I promise. And Helen will know why I'm saying that in a second. How to deal with a school who has no understanding of what adopted children need and disregard any professional advice?
Right. I'm going to answer that in a slightly different way. I went into school one day about an issue with one of my kids, and I was ignored. The previous day, I had been in the Palace of Westminster, and I had spoken as part of a big group to in a very large room to a lot of people. I was seen as the expert. I held up my bubble wrap, you know, all of that. I was seen as an expert, treated as an expert. The next day, I'm just an over-anxious parent. So, schools and others who don't get it, they're not going to, your school is not going to hear it from you, Claire. Fiona's school is not going to hear it from Fiona, however much knowledge and experience. My school didn't hear it from me. They need to hear it from somebody they perceive to be an expert. So I can say, hey, talking to teachers, I know what it's like. I was a teacher. I know what it's like, and I have learned da, 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 da. So finding some bridge and then moving on. And we have to understand, teachers do not get trained in trauma or attachment or any of that stuff. Social workers barely do. So the level of ignorance out there is huge. Find some resources that you can send these people to. And sometimes, I mean, God, sometimes you just have to go, enough, and you have to change the school. Or you have to change something else. And you know, the Gandhi be the change is all fine and good, but if your kids are suffering and they can't learn because they are so over aroused and they are hyper aroused and in fear, what's the point in them being in school? Yeah, I mean, do not let your children's education be affected by their schooling, to quote Mark Twain. And for our kids, sometimes that's the case. We have to fill in those developmental gaps and the ability to self-regulate, which is one thing that's more important. Yes, there's others. So you have to step back in that situation and go, I am not being heard. This is not serving my child. What do I do? And you try and change, you try and help. Notice how you deliver this. Is it, I'd like to share this with you, is you need to understand why my child is doing, you have to understand that he, you know, I can't tell you the details, but he suffered so much when he was younger. You know, you need to understand that. Now, that's, you know, adoptive parent with valid point. Another person who is a genuine over anxious mother will present in the same way. So how you get your message across is part of the skills and thinking that's needed. So I could give the same information to social workers dealing with my kids as I might do to members of Parliament and members of the House of Lords. They heard me because they don't see me in that light. They see me as a professional. The teachers, you know, let's be fair, I have, because I did say, you know, I'm a bit like Marmite. There are people who hate what I say and how I deliver it. And that's all, you know, genuinely when I speak, 95% go, yeah, and 5% go, what a load of old, who does she think she is kind of attitude. So be aware, take in a book, take in a pamphlet, point them at people's websites. I know my website has got stuff for other people. If you're a prospective, prepare your support group. Prepare them, not through you, point them at people like me, like Karen Treisman. There's all sorts of people out in the adoption and fostering world who can give information. I talk about it in here, how my parents, they didn't accept it. My father's view was if you slapped them more, they wouldn't steal. And there was no way that I would have changed his view or his mind. And I had to accept that, which is awful because it meant I couldn't share the big stuff. There was a lot of stuff I couldn't share. And they were, you know, it was their grandchildren. And did I really want to share the really horrible things that they were doing? Nah, that's, they couldn't accept. And that meant they couldn't support me, which is unfortunate. So I've talked today about reframing, pre-framing. Think about pre-framing. And there's a slide, you know, an ounce of pre-frame is worth a pound of reframe. It's a quote from Judy Delosier. If you tell people, for example, you say, I mean, this is not adoption related, but look, I'm sorry, I might be half an hour late. And I'll try and let you know. And if you then are half an hour late, you've pre-framed it and people will have some understanding. If you're just half an hour late, they go to the 10 minutes and start getting annoyed, 15 minutes, annoyed and just a bit more, 20 minutes they start to get worried, but half an hour, they're like, so you manage other people's expectations.
And I have to say that I think there are some fantastic schools out there. And actually, during this COVID crisis, it's absolutely put a magnifying glass. Some schools have risen and are going way over and above and absolutely get the trauma that all the children are going through, which I think will set them up going forward. We have other schools which are just dismissing all of this. So you're saying that there does sometimes come a point where you have to walk away you have to change schools. You have to decide, this is not right for my family, it's not right for my child, and look around for somewhere else.
Yeah. And interesting, the walking away, sometimes you have to walk away from your own expectations, from your own behaviour. One of the things, you know, I am guilty as charged, you know, first couple of years, it was all about the children, it wasn't about me. It took me a while before I realised I had to change. And I had to do a deep dive. I had to recognise what was going on between the interaction between me and my individual children, and that I needed to be different for each of them, and I had to change, and I had to let go of my expectations. And, you know, sort of laughter amongst sort of experienced adopters, you go, hey, got them to 30, they're still alive, result. Got them to 21, they're still alive. And the things that you thought were important, actually, after, it's just like, sorry, almost swore there. For those of you that know me, I can be a bit of a potty mouth.
Never. And this kind of links in the school. We've had a comment that looking at behaviour policies of local primary schools, and this prospective adopter was surprised at the use of behaviour barometer, putting the names of naughty children under a dark cloud on the board in a classroom. I would, before Helen goes in, I would love to actually take those schools and do the same for the teachers in the classroom. And actually, if you've had a difficult conversation with a teacher, or a teacher's not done what they've agreed, they go on the dark cloud so that the whole school can see, because it is a whole shame-based system. We have Becky Brooks, who's going to be talking on Wednesday. She's our education policy advisor, and she's going to be talking about some behaviour and about transition. So that's one to watch on Wednesday. Yeah, traffic light systems, red, amber, green, are particularly common in academies. There are some shocking schools out there, but there are also some brilliant schools who just get it.
And just the Bruce Perry regulate, relate, reason. That's the order you do it in, and that's true for schools. And that slide somewhere. So regulate, and for all of us, it is. I add to that, and I would say regulate self, then regulate child, and that's going to be part of the interaction and the relationship. Then the relationship, the smile, the nod, the connect, then the reason. And many schools do the reason first. Go back to the window of tolerance, look at the self-regulation stuff. It's not useful, and it's not helpful. And schools that are aware of the need for this, sorry, excuse me, it makes such a difference.
Yeah, we've had a comment here that we changed the system the other year. There is no cloud-based system at all. They got rid of it all. And he says, funny enough, it's a much more positive in school.
Well, yeah. And why would you make a child who is already filled with shame, thinking back to Tim, who thinks I am bad, because he was told, you are bad, you little, as he's being walloped. So he's receiving that from stepdad. So he's filled with shame. I am bad. He's already got that. And so let's give him some more shame-making behaviour and see how that works. Yeah. And I can't remember who said it, but our kids have, paraphrase, our kids have been through more than a teacher could ever imagine. And as a parent, be it to a teacher or standing in the playground when the mum says, oh yes, you know, well, my child had a bit of a difficult start, and you go, well yeah, you know, they were in hospital for a couple of weeks. Oh right, and you can't say, really? Oh well, mine was shag stupid between the ages of 2 and 4. You can't say that, because it's not appropriate to do that. And you can't share this stuff with a teacher. I have witnessed, you know, I've heard my kids gossiped about in the playground in a way that only could have come from one teacher. So you have to be careful, and to actually just help people understand that. So point them off in all sorts of directions to learn. And you know, we've got some of the school stuff. There's the Louise Bomber. There's, oh, I picked it up. I had it earlier. There's the Adoption Friendly School. There's all the work, all the books of Louise Bomber. There's a lot of stuff out there that can help.
But actually, like us as parents, we want to have the tools. A lot of those books have the tools in as well.
Yes,
really
absolutely.
important.
Yeah,
and we are getting lots of comments that their schools are doing well. Yeah,
and people, it's the start with why. And this by the way, if you start with why, Simon Sinek, there is his first TED talk talks about, and there's 3 concentric circles about the why, what, and how, not related to adoption at all, but the principles underlying it, the concept. If you get that in your head, you're going to go, oh, and you're going to find much more empowering ways of seeing, being, and doing things. And helping teachers get the why, then they can do the what and the how. I have to say, I've done it with judges. I've presented to judges, and they, oh God, they're bright. It's scarily bright. They got the why, and then we just, kind of had conversations, just sitting around about what and how to do it differently. It's not for me to say, will you change this policy or that, whatever. If I give them the information, the why, whether it's a social worker, a teacher, a member of parliament doing legislation, they can work out the what and the how. That's where their expertise. Why? And also, never ask your child why they did something, because it's just a terrible question. Never ask anybody, why did you do that? Because they'll go, don't know. It's a very unempowering and unuseful tool.
So on that note, thank you so much. It has been brilliant. It covered lots of ground, which I'm very grateful of. We would love to have you back again. And I'm sure from the comments, we would love to have you doing another one. Yes, Pupil Premium Plus is a great use of to buy resources and books so that they can educate them, and then they don't have the excuse that they don't know and can't spend the money. Sorry, someone's just popped that up. So thank you so much, Helen. Really grateful. Thank you all for joining us today and all the great questions and the feedback. It's fantastic. And so we have covered a lot of ground, and I'm amazed, Helen, that you kept to time. Done it fantastic.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, you kept the time for what I was expecting to keep.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm just looking at the clock now. So, okay. I was working on a 40 minutes for the whole thing. So, no, that's fine.
Yeah, no.
No, I can do time. I can do time.
Thank you so much. So thank you all very much for joining us. If you're okay just to hang on, Helen, while everyone disappears now. But thank you very much for all the comments and the feedback. Brilliant and fabulous. Everyone's saying that you were.
Well, thank you. And can I thank you, participants, for taking the time to do this and to educate yourself. And I use this phrase, leading learner. A leading learner is just a few paces ahead of everybody else. So you are leading your own learning and potentially leading others in learning. And that's part of what we have to do to get
Thank you
all sorts of messages out there.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Thank you very much. I feel more prepared results. Great. Let me stop.